Yes, indeedy. This is Uncle Barry. Sitting in studio with me today is Peter Mimo, Larry Casanova, and Joe Miller. Peter, I want to start with you. So many things are happening in this country so fast. It looks like Trump is gaining a tremendous head of steam. He came out the other day with this tip situation where he's not going to charge tips for especially younger people who are struggling today for restaurants and bars and settings and everywhere else. Your thoughts on that?
I thought that was ingenious, personally. I thought that was a great idea. I mean, you got to get the word out. I noticed that the CNNs and the ABCs didn't report that. So, again, the problem that we have is that the media is, it's not a free press.
No.
It is a press that is biased. There are mostly all Democrat hacks. I mean, you look at the Stephanopoulos, he worked for Clinton. Chuck Todd's wife works in the Democratic Party. Jim Sciutto from CNN was Obama's State Department press spokesman. All these people come from the Democratic Party. So you're going to have a hard time getting the press on your side. So it's hard to get the message out. Remember what Plato said years and years and years ago. He who controls the narrative controls the people.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to overcome.
Yeah. Larry, let me ask you a question. It looks like Trump has a different appearance than we've seen him in the past. He was always confident, but he's really, he and his administration and his campaigners are really putting together a strong campaign. Just like Pete and I just talked about with this tip situation. He wants to do something to realign taxes. I don't know how that's going to all work out. He was on TikTok the other day. So I think he's really campaigning in the right way today to really confidently beat Joe, the mummy, Biden. Your thoughts?
Oh, for sure. And let me first say congratulations to you guys for being on air for a year. And now you're even sewn into community again with the Barry Sable After Dark show. So the community, we can't thank you enough for everything that you guys are doing.
Uncle Barry, we've got Larry and Joe in the house. I thought they had to be home by dark.
Yeah,
these are young guys.
Exactly. Well, Joe Miller,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Larry.
Joe Miller, why don't you tell us, through your efforts and Larry's efforts, where they could find us today?
Well, if you're not past your bedtime, like me and Lair, I mean, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter,
Milk and cookies, too.
Facebook.
Hot.
Oh, need those. You need those. But
Go ahead,
Facebook,
buddy.
Instagram, Twitter, Rumble, True Social, YouTube. Facebook Live, Spotify. We're everywhere right now. We're getting out there, getting the word out for Barry Sable and friends.
Yep. So, Larry, as a young guy, what are the things that you're considering that are bothering you? You're going to go vote. Obviously, it looks like you're a Trump man. But tell me what you would tell your generation why they should be looking for a conservative movement today.
Well, here's the thing, and touching on the points that you brought up already, Trump is revived and rejuvenated. Fresh off all that bad news, here he comes out with his campaign on TikTok.
Slugging.
Logan Paul, who is dominating all those channels right now, TikTok, YouTube. He is the premier voice on those channels. And here's Trump side by side hosting them at Mar-a-Lago. Come on. Come on. What are we talking about here? What do you think, Barry?
Well, I think there's a lot of good things happening. Listen, we all know that if we don't have a change of the guard, we're in trouble. Peter, what's going to happen in November, and tell me why?
That is really something that I'm number one. I predicted Biden wouldn't be the nominee. Let's see how that works out. I'm sticking to my prediction as far as that. By the way, I hate to make predictions.
Who's on the bench, Peter?
Well, they've got a number of people on the bench. I hate to make predictions, especially about the future. But on the bench for them is Gavin Newsom. I think if Michelle Obama ran, she'd win probably every state. But hopefully,
really, you think people would fall for that kind of stuff?
I believe people would fall for that. Yeah,
the Republicans, Pete.
After we stood 6 feet away from each other and wore masks to stop COVID, unless you were eating, then COVID didn't spread when you were eating. You could take the mask off. I mean, yes, I do believe that we would go for that. We're a global country, and the media controls the narrative, like we just talked about. So it'd be difficult to overcome that. This election is going to be a really wild one. The thing that concerns me the most, especially I'm from Pennsylvania, the cheating will be off the charts in this election. Obviously, I believe that there was cheating in the last election, only for no other reason than the statistical numbers. If you're a math guy and you see the turnout numbers from the last election, if you were doing a statistical survey, you probably throw those numbers out because they're so far off the norm that you wouldn't even calculate them in your final numbers. And that's one of the reasons that I believe that the election had a lot of fraud in it. And plus, you had 2,000 mules, so you either believe that the tape was fake or somebody cheated. I mean, it's pretty obvious. So that's what concerns me the most, Barry, is the integrity of this election.
Yep. So, Joe, let me go to you. I believe that the Democratic Party right now is a state of chaos. And a vote for Biden, if he was to continue to be the presidential Democratic nominee, could be a vote for Kamala Harris because he would never last another 4 years. So, and I, be honest with you, Pete, I take exception. I do not think if Michelle Obama ran, I think people are smart enough to see it's a Democrat again, and I just don't, I can't see it. And if they fell for that because she's black and a woman, how shameful. Then people shouldn't be voting.
Well, you got to give Obama
someone.
a lot of credit because he flew under the radar. There's a lot of people out there, even moderates, that think that he did a good job when, in fact, he was the evil doing behind the subrogation of Israel.
Yep.
He's the one that first started to create those cracks in our alliance. He's the first president to ever vote against Israel in the Security Council. He's the first president to ever use an agency, weaponize it against his opponents like he did with the IRS when they attacked the Tea Party.
All these firsts.
He's the one that spied on President Trump. It was his administration, Brennan and Comey, that initiated that, the Russian hoax where they were actually spying on their political opponents. He managed to not really get sullied up too much with that, and therefore he now has a reputation of being like a decent president when, to me, he was the beginning of all this evil destruction in our political system.
So, Joe, again, let me turn to you. You're a young Republican. What are your thoughts going forward? Do you think that Donald Trump could beat anybody that the Democratic Party brought forth? Because I'm with Peter. I don't see this guy making it to pass the Democratic convention. The convention. Yeah, I don't think
agree.
he's going to make it.
I mean, what was going through my head that whole time when you were talking was really that I think Harris would be on the bench too. I think they're prepping her to take over because she is VP, and they kind of know that people would like to go with that establishment route, that trusting that she was vice president, that they want to run her back up. But all of them are just going to follow the same Obama-Clinton agenda. They're going to follow that agenda that they're going to take a non-nationalistic approach, making America number one. They want to make America number 15. They want to make it even with all the other countries that yet want to come here.
Hey, Larry, can you imagine Kamala Harris in a debate with Trump? I mean, if there wasn't a slaughter. Hey, Pete, tell Larry and what's your name over there, Joseph? Tell us about Joe the Cow.
Radio Joe.
Joe the Cow. Can you tell me about Joe the Cow?
Well,
Joes.
Joe the Cow came from the fact that everything that we see in the media, like with the balloons and with the $35 trillion in debt and with the open borders and with the crime in the streets and with the war all over the place, everybody says, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. And there was Joe the Cow. They put him on a truck. He said, where am I going? They said, don't worry about it. They took him to a place with other cows. It smelled funny. He said, don't worry about it. He heard machinery in the background. He said, what's that machinery? He said, don't worry about it. Next thing you know, there's red stuff all over the ground. They said, don't worry about it. A second later, kaboom, his head was off.
Oh, my God.
Then he had nothing to worry about. So the point being, we are Joe the Cow right now. And before you know it, kaboom, either Iran's going to be nuclear or the justice system is going to be, coming out against their political opponents widespread if we lose the next election. In my opinion, there's plenty to worry about. Plenty. There's everything to worry about. $35 trillion in debt. Who's paying that back?
Yeah,
Where's that money? That money ain't coming from K&A, Uncle
No,
Barry.
no, of course not. So, Larry, let me ask you a question. Let's talk about that concept of Iran having a nuclear bomb. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. They want to destroy anybody that doesn't believe in the philosophies of their faith. So let's start with Israel because that's the closest location. And they bomb Israel. I mean, boom. I don't know. Are you going to bomb them first before they do you? But my thoughts are they would like to control the world. As a young guy, I mean, when you go to work every day and you have a wife, are you concerned about the safety of the United States, including all of the people that have migrated into this country? Talk to me about safety in your mind.
For sure. I think it's just paramount. This election is going to really tell us how deep the deep state is. If Trump does not get in and we don't have a strong figure in the White House, that's why we're having so much unrest around the world. And that's why Iran is becoming such a scary situation. Hey, talk about this in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia did not renew the petrodollar agreement.
That's true.
And now you're going to have not only the civil and the unrest that wars are going around the country, the globe, but you also have the financial and fiscal risks now where dollar as the reserve world currency could be in jeopardy. If we do not get someone in that can stand up for us soon, where are we going to be at?
Joe, wake up over there. Can I just stop texting and wake up? Your thoughts?
I'm up. I'm ready. I mean, we need someone that's really actually going to listen to the people right now. Biden has no clue what he's doing. He's looking out for his own interests. We saw that with Ukraine. We saw it with his son. We saw that they're looking to stuff their own pockets right now. And honestly, what you guys talked about earlier, we're getting involved with every war when we don't even have a place to be there.
Yeah. Hey, Pete, stuffing pockets. Let's talk about that for a second. How corrupt could these people actually be? The decisions that they're making in the far east, I mean, and west and everywhere. I mean, how could this possibly be happening to us if there isn't money being funded into their pockets, like Joe just said?
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
The money right now is a really, really bad thing. You were down at the border. Who do you think's handing out water to the people and sandwiches to the people that are coming over the border? They're called NGOs, non-government organizations. Where do they get their money? Grants from where? The government. Where's the government get their money? From the taxpayer. So you are paying for that water that these organizations are giving out, okay? And, you know, I just think that our government has become this giant Leviathan. The founders would be embarrassed to see
Shocked,
that that's
Pete.
what we allowed. You know, in the beginning, the government did two things. They delivered mail and protected us. Now they're telling us what light bulbs we need to buy.
You know
Now, as far as Iran being nuclear, believe them. They say what they're going to do. They've said it all along. Hamas says what they're going to do. They want to eradicate Israel. They say it every day.
And you know what?
They don't move away from that position.
You know.
So when Iran gets a nuclear weapon,
they're scary.
Absolutely, they're going to put it on Israel. That's what they say they're going to do.
And you know
I believe them.
You know what's interesting? They fight differently, to me, than the rest of the world. Their hostages that they had from Israel and the United States, they had them dressed like people from Gaza. They weren't dressed like Jewish people. So therefore, the Israeli soldiers couldn't even tell the difference between an Israeli hostage.
Wait a second. Isn't it a war crime if you take a hostage in a military situation and put them in with civilians?
I believe
that's
so.
a war crime.
Where's the
right?
United States during this, Pete?
I mean, that's a war crime.
But where's the United States during this? Why aren't they yelling up and down like you bangies?
They still have American
wrong?
hostages over there.
Unbelievable.
What do we
Larry.
do about it?
Well,
we do
Larry,
nothing about it.
Larry, your thoughts?
Yeah. This is what comes when the entire world has no respect for who you have in the White House. Is there any other way to interpret this?
I don't think so.
Okay. Joe Biden comes in. We have the war in Ukraine. We leave Afghanistan. the war in the Middle East, and now we have a possible conflict over Taiwan on the horizon. What else is there to be
Your
said?
buddy's texting away over there. Should we include him? What do you want us to do with Joseph?
Joe's
over
got
there?
a fire point
Radio
coming right
Joe
now.
is
there you
extremely
go.
busy. He's got a lot of properties to move,
A lot of stuff
and
going
he's
on.
moving them.
Joe Miller conglomerate.
I know. You have some showings this afternoon,
A little
don't
bit,
you?
a little bit.
There you go. So if you can, give us your thoughts on how do you think Trump is going to attract young guys in your generation? You're 25, 26 years old. What do you think he has to do to impress them?
He has to talk about the future. He has to talk about issues like Social Security. Is that going to still be around? Is that going to be something we have to worry about? 'Cause
Are you worried about that?
Well, I mean, a lot of us, we pay into it, but we don't know if we'll see the benefits. We don't know. We pay into it with all our taxes and everything, but we don't know if we'll actually get that benefit when time comes when we need it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are focused on that. But I mean, if he focuses on future outcomes and really connecting with us, like you said, he's going on TikTok, social media.
Unbelievable. I would have never thought that.
It's great, though. It's great that he's doing that because then he is connecting with the millennials, even younger than me. He's connecting with the high schoolers, getting them involved, getting them out to vote once they turn 18, getting them registered.
Great point.
Yep, I agree. What are your thoughts, Peter?
The media is so biased against us. We got problems. They present themselves as the ones that are pro-government. And us as the ones that oppose democracy. By the way, just a footnote, democracy, we're not a democracy. The Founding Fathers loathed democracy because they knew that the democracy turns into mobocracy.
Yep.
And mobocracy turns into totalitarianism and autocratic government. So we are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic.
Yep.
And there's a distinct difference there. But if you listen to Biden, somebody should tell Biden, hey, we're not a democracy. He keeps saying it, but I guess they think we're really stupid and nobody really knows how our government works.
You know what's funny? I look at the United States as a little bit of a different version than maybe most people. To me, we're a major corporation. Money in, money out. How you spend it, what you do with it. But I have to tell you something. Our founding fathers, in their wildest dreams, could not have conjured up what the heck is going on today.
Yes.
I tell you, that's what bothers me. The Constitution is not prepared for allowing illegal people to come into our country, and we're going to pay for them, and we're not going to vet them. Do you think anybody ever thought about that
It's
when they put
ridiculous.
together the laws and the regulations and the bylaws of this country? Joe, your thoughts? I mean, come on, wake up.
They probably had no clue we were going to go this route. I mean, they didn't know that. Who knew America would be one of the biggest nations for immigrants coming in that could count as voters at some point? They had no.
Nobody
idea
could have
that.
had a vision like
They
that.
didn't have that vision. They didn't know that they were going to be coming in and not even. And even if they're not citizens voting in our elections, they had no idea that was going to be a situation. But that's where we're at today.
No, I know. And listen, let me tell you something, Larry. I know Joe wants to blame it on the alcohol, and it's early in the morning. We're not going to let him get away with that.
Is he still drinking? I told him to stop when he came in.
It ain't going to happen. And let me
It's
tell you
hard.
something.
It's hard, man.
Disclaimer:
Listen,
Joe Miller doesn't actually drink.
Well, then he must be smoking the funny stuff or
we're
something,
kidding
because
around
he's
with
in a
that. I
coma
doubt
this
very
morning.
much. That I doubt very much.
Getting roasted today.
But the media, they're out there claiming that we're the ones. But you look in the streets, the college protests. That's not MAGA. They're all
No.
Democrats.
Yeah.
Right? It's not MAGA. Could you imagine how quick those protests would get shut down if there were Trump signs and Trump hats? It
Yeah.
would be like the end of the world. Look at this revolt. It's insurrection, riot in the streets. They profess themselves as being the ones that are pro-government and us as being opposed to democracy. And, to me, it's crazy. We support constitutional government. That's what patriotism is all about.
Yeah.
Right.
We reject tyranny. We support our society, our history, our culture.
But we're not
we
doing
support
that
our
now.
Constitution.
We're not doing this now.
Not the giant fist of government that comes
No.
down with all these regulations that attack our individual freedom. And look what
Ridiculous.
it's doing to the cost of living
Yeah, of
with the
course.
price of goods and services that
Right.
we're suffering
Of
with.
course. We talked about
This
that.
is not a coincidence.
We talked about it on our show last week when I told you I took a ride on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, and I made a pit stop at a restaurant. It cost me $10 for breakfast. That was fair. Orange juice was $8 for the glass. Whoever heard of it? The whole glass. You could buy a 52-ounce carton.
Florida's
of
finest.
Which you don't drink, or Tropicana for
I'm a
less than $4.
Tropicana guy.
Well, Pete, where do you get your orange juice?
I get
Yeah,
it at
Wawa.
That's
You
right.
gotta buy it.
I buy
That's
12
right.
ounces,
He pays
12
retail
ounces at a
juice.
time.
Whoever
I
heard
don't
of
have
that?
an industrial-sized refrigerator that I can refrigerate.
Gotta go
you
In
know.
where? In your
Orange
car, or your
juice-
house?
Orange juice has a shelf life. And he wants me to buy bulk.
The hell it does.
how do
It
you
lasts
move
for
it?
a long
Never goes
time.
bad, I guess.
What do you have? Yellow freight deliver it? I mean, doesn't it have to be refrigerated orange juice?
Well, you know what?
I
Thought
thought
Barry
it
doesn't
did.
think so.
No, but you know
Remember,
what?
again, energy's up 35%
Yeah.
since 2021.
So
You'll
then
see these statistics.
So Pete,
Inflation, it is right. It was 9% the first year,
Yep.
then 5%. That's 14. Then it was 4%. That's 18, and now it's 3%. That's 21% in the last 4 years. That's not that that $5 hot dog's not going back to $2.50.
Yeah.
No.
May I make
That's a
point?
$5
Go
hot
and
dog.
back.
fast food. Hold on one
Exactly.
second.
Different
Hold that thought
Yeah.
1 second. And fast food. I'm not going to mention any names. You go there now, get a hamburger, French fries, and a Coke, and you're like $12.
Yeah.
So here's my question to
More
you,
than
Larry,
that.
before you make
The
a
only
point.
thing fast about it is how much money comes out of your wallet.
Exactly. Exactly.
Here's the point. If we change this administration, how long is it going to take to revert back to where we were somewhat? How is
It's not
McDonald's?
going back, my
I don't
friend.
think so.
Not going
McDonald's and Wendy's and places like that that are charging, say, $12 or $13 for a hamburger and French fry and Coke, roughly. How is that? I don't
Barry.
see it going back. So how does
Uncle
it correct
Barry.
itself? Yes.
The guy making $20 an hour,
Mm.
he ain't going back to 17.
I
That's
agree.
not happening.
So how does this
You're right.
correct itself?
It's not
Is
happening.
this a permanent fix?
You're stuck with higher prices, and that ain't changing. Now, we may be able to moderate how much they increase after this. Trump had it increasing, what, 1%, 2%, 3% at the most a year with inflation?
Very minimal. It was
Very minimal, right? So wages were actually increasing higher than inflation, so you could stay ahead of that snowball.
Yeah.
But now, 20%, who's gotten a 22,
No.
23% raise in the last
But
3
this is
years?
what I don't
Nobody.
get. People
Nobody.
think that with you increase minimum wage, companies, corporations, they're just going to increase prices. But
That's
no one is thinking that.
You just
Well,
crushed a
they're
small
fools.
business. You just crushed
They're
a small
staggering
business.
Exactly.
fools.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Well,
buffoons.
Listen, Pete, I don't think wages are ever going to be able to compete with inflation. I don't know how young people are going to buy houses.
Well, they did during Trump's theory. So we've got to get back to a place where people
But interest rates weren't where they are
no,
now.
they were a lot lower.
And
that
energy,
sure helped
energy
guys
was
like
$2
this.
a gallon. If you got to get back, how long do you think it's going to take to correct energy back to where it was
It's going to
roughly?
be. It's going to be tough. It's going to be
That's
really
the
hard.
problem.
But
Uncle
energy
Barry,
is
let me hop
probably
in.
your quickest.
Go
Let me
ahead.
hop in.
Go ahead.
Couple of things, okay? So Trump gets in. One thing that he did well while he was in office is he sold assets, military assets, to our allies, okay, in order to make money and allow them to handle their own policing. That will be a way that we could generate some income as a country again, get back to running this as a business.
And get out of
okay?
their, get out of their backyard.
And get out of their backyard. Let them handle their own policing. We give them the ability to protect themselves by manufacturing and selling them the assets, the military assets. I like that thought. 2, Social Security is never going anywhere because they can tax it. The question becomes is what is it going to do for you when you need it, which is probably nothing. They're never going to stop taxing you. So Social Security will always be around, but it may not do anything for you. And under this current administration, here's how they go about everything. Well, you guys want to save on gas and electric, like to Peter's point. Why don't you guys think about not having refrigerators, okay? And then if you unplug your refrigerator,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
you'll
right.
save on your gas
Go
and
back to
electric. okay?
candles.
Yeah,
Eventually,
exactly.
we'll be
It's
back at
ridiculous.
horses.
Yeah.
Remember
In the
when
dark ages.
my wife was saying, "Oh, that cable bill! I can't believe the cable bill. We need to do something about our budget." I said, "Yeah, we'll go back to candles, and what we'll do is we'll get rid of the cars. We'll get horses again. We can build a little barn. I mean,
yeah.
where do you go with that? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you know, the new world is here, and it ain't changing, and it's going to be an expensive world. And I got news for you: if you owned a business and you run a business and you have a balance sheet and you have pensions on your balance sheet or things that you're going to have to pay out in the future, promises that you made,
Yep.
they have to be part of your balance sheet. They're called unfunded liabilities.
Talk about it.
The federal government, their balance sheet does not include. We're $35 trillion in debt without all the Social
Can't
Security
pay it
that
back
we
ever.
owe,
Never.
without all the Medicare and Medicaid that we owe, without all the federal pensions
You're
that
up to
we
300 now, Pete.
You're up to $250 trillion.
Yep.
Oof.
Yep.
You honestly believe that $250 trillion is being paid back? It's not happening.
How many printing machines, Joe,
Not
do you
happening.
need to print all
Yeah,
that money just to cover that?
Yeah, you'll be printing.
How you gonna
to
cover the
print to
printing
print.
machine?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what bothers
So,
me? I know you
It's
guys.
going to get bad.
Pete.
It's going to get bad.
Yeah, I know they don't want to hear it as young guys, and I call them young bucks. I have always been concerned about drugs in this country. And I know that there are a lot of people, even in our generations, that smoked weed and pot basically every night. You know, I don't know. Today it bothers me because when you smoked it in your house or in your backyard. Now you walk into a store, it smells. You walk on the sidewalk, it smells. It smells from weed everywhere. That to me means everybody is walking on the streets high. I don't think this is a cool thing. And I think when you're not in control of yourself, whether it's pot or cocaine or anything else stronger, I think that leads to problems.
Great point. Let's go. Well, that's a great point, Uncle Barry.
And I don't know how you go back, Larry. I'll be honest with you, because it's like Pete says. How do you go back to a hamburger that's $6 or $7 for a meal? You can't. So all of these people, now we have dispensaries. You could drive in. There used to be a time where you needed a doctor's note because you couldn't sleep. You could just buy pot no matter what, and strong stuff that puts you in a loop. Go ahead, Joe. I know you want to comment on it. I know you're a liberal. I know you think this pot thing is great. We've had talks about it. Good luck.
Don't
Wait
take
till your
that.
generation
Don't take that. Lay
has
it
to
down, Joe.
swallow
Don't take
this.
that.
Well, here's where I stand with it. I mean, a couple reasons. I think it's a human right. It's not any worse than alcohol. You can say people are on the streets drinking. You don't know that. I'd rather deal with someone walking by high than walking by drunk during the day.
Do you think it's affected, honestly, crime and doing irrational things that you wouldn't normally do? Or you just think that our society has become so liberal that drugs has nothing to do with
Well,
it?
I think weed would be the last of the problems with the drugs. I think we're dealing more with issues like fentanyl and everything. With weed being legalized, it's really more. I think you kind of deter the crime in a sense that there's not as much illegal drug activity. They're not selling weed on the streets. They're not doing that. People know what they're getting when
Who
they go to the
cares where they
store.
buy it from? Everybody seems to be in a state of euphoria. And to be honest, maybe I should join in too, for God's sake.
But you gotta
you got to
think the
look at
money,
this.
too.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say, and that's a good point, Joe. You got to look at it from two sides. There's a number of states that have balanced their budget deficits with the legalization of marijuana, so it's a moneymaker for the
Again,
states.
money,
And a
follow
lot
money.
goes to schools.
and it keeps you out of the black market, which is a good thing.
Okay.
Now you're still in there with the other heavier duty drugs, which really generate more of the violence and more of the crime because there's so much more money involved in the fentanyl and the cocaine trade. Crack, I guess.
Absolutely, all those.
But so it's a two-phase thing. It's going to be hard to get the states to go back now. I think you're going to see more states legalizing it because it helps so much with the budgets that they need to take care of the welfare state that we talked about, all the free money that people are getting. So that's what they're looking for. They're looking for, looking for the financial remuneration more than they're looking at the social degradation of having drugs in society.
Larry, I don't know how you're ever going to go back to the way we were. I mean, do I have to play the song?
You sound like Barbara Streisand.
Well, that's right. But go watch that movie, The Way We Were.
yeah, the dinosaurs aren't coming back.
No, they're not. Exactly.
Not happening.
And
They're
that
done.
concerns me,
done.
guys. I know, look, I'm in my 70s now. And even though I think like I was when I was your age, I mean, things slow down and things change. And I probably wouldn't do exactly the same things the way I did because I had more confidence in the American public. But today, I've lost confidence in our people. You know, it's rare if you get someone to open up a door for you if you're walking into a building and hold the door. Or it's rare when you let somebody in when they're driving and someone waves to you and says thank you. I mean, we have lost culturally a lot
Well,
of the
that's up to us to teach. And with my grandchildren, I tell them all the time, never pass up an opportunity to do a random act of kindness, of picking something up for a lady
I'm
or
not
opening
worried
a
about
door.
you. I'm worried
We
about
all
all
have to
these
do it.
people that are coming into this country that are culturally,
Well,
and I don't want to mention anybody. I'll just say from the Mideast, they're culturally a little different, and they weren't.
they hate
weaned.
us.
Yeah, but they weren't weaned. They're living here. They weren't
Correct.
weaned to open up a door or
No.
say thank you
No.
or nod to you.
No.
Have a nice day.
Mm-mm.
They just don't. I don't think they do it over there. So if they come here,
No.
they're not going to do it here either.
They chop down doors. They don't open them.
That's
They're
right.
just not. It's a different culture. It's a
Exactly.
completely different culture than how we grow up and what we're used to.
Hey, one thing that I wanted to bring up, you're going to hear a lot about the Supreme Court. And the reason you're going to hear a lot about the Supreme Court is there's some rulings out there, and they want to intimidate the justices to rule in their favor.
Yep.
So you're going to hear stories about Alito and stories about Thomas, whether it's flying flags or taking trips. And I just want you to know, just for the record, so you guys know, that these trips do not have to be reported by the justices. That's not a mandatory thing for them to
I'm
do.
not crazy, but to see that,
And
Peter.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Judge Breyer, the two Democrats that have recently left the court, took, I think, somewhere around 800 trips, 200 overseas.
Who's paying for that? Us?
No, they had people just like Clarence Thomas. They had backers or people that supported them and paid for their trips. So this is common in the Supreme Court, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. Can you show me a case where anybody ruled in a certain way because they took a trip somewhere?
Yeah,
a
I
judge
know.
is a
but
judge.
it doesn't
They're
sound
human
right
beings.
to me.
You could always find something. Oh, he went to the Wawa and they let him keep the change.
Pete,
I mean,
it's
you
called
know,
doing
where do you-
favors somehow.
I have to trust that a judge is an impartial viewer of justice. Now, that's a little harder to do after we saw what happened in Manhattan with that district judge that in the Trump trial. But they're attacking our court. They're attacking our electoral college. They're attacking our values. They're attacking our border, or attacking traditional America. And that's the biggest problem that we have nowadays. And the young guys got to fight the battle.
Pete, that was a good wrap up. I want to thank you guys for sitting in studio with me. Pete Mimo, Larry Casanova, Joe Sleepy Miller over there. I think we had a great session. Thank you for listening to the Barry Sable Show with friends after dark. We will see you soon.